Awesome.
So welcome back to the Barbell Bikini and Biz podcast. You join me for another guest podcast today, and I guess we've got a bit of a theme going on with these podcasts. So we had the one with Michelle, which was all about endometriosis. We had the one with Lauren, which was all about our journeys to regain our cycle. And now I'm joined by Chris, who is actually a teammate because we both have the same coach, even though we are coaches. It's like a coach inception thing going on here. But we're going to be talking about PCOS today, which again is something which I know the basics of. But I thought, well, why not bring a bit of an expert, someone who knows a lot more than I do on the subject, because it's something that I've had a lot of questions about now that I've been talking more about my cycle and my journey. But I don't want to be someone who, sprouts just basic information and says I know a lot when I don't. So I thought I'd bring Chris on today to share some knowledge bombs with us all. But first and foremost, Chris, just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and 3 fun facts about yourself that people might not know.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Expert, I'll take that. So who am I and why should you care? I'm a PT and nutritionist from Liverpool, hence the accent. I hope you can understand me well. The 3 fun things about me, 3 fun facts. Well, number 1, probably from coaching people or coaching predominantly females, I think you can say I'm a little bit of a feminist sometimes. Number 2, I used to be 20 stone. That's a fun fact.
That's pretty fun.
And number 3 is I can actually play the violin.
That's pretty fun as well.
That's cool.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, the violin.
Nice. They're fun indeed. Right, so let's move on to the topic of today, which is going to be all things PCOS. So if you're listening to this, you're either an avid listener of the podcast, so you're just listening to it for the sake of listening to it because you love my podcasts, so I love you, or you're listening to this because it's something that's flagged up your interest. You may yourself have interest in things such as female physiology, female hormones, or you yourself may have PCOS. So if that's the case, then this next bit, you're going to be like, yeah, this is basic and boring. But Chris, let's just start by going into the absolute basics of what the hell PCOS is. What does it stand for? What does it mean? Floor is yours.
Cool. So PCOS, often referred to as polycystic ovary syndrome. It affects quite a lot of women. I've found, especially over the last few years / months, and really pushing it. There's been a lot more women out of the woodwork becoming more aware of it and known. It affects, I think, 1 in 5. So it's between 6 and 26% of females, which that's quite a big number, to be fair. So the reason why I want to talk so loud about it is because it's something that we in the industry work with as coaches. I work with people with PCOS, but they're neglected from a medical standpoint when they go and see their GP or when they get diagnosed PCOS. It's just a case of the doctor saying, go and lose weight and then come back. It's no education on it. It's no information at all. So the reason why I'm talking so loud about it is because it's neglected. So we have a bunch of females out there who haven't got a clue what it is, who find it really hard losing weight. And yeah, it can look like a numerous things with PCOS. You can have actual cysts on your ovaries. I think the range between 5 and 8 centimeters. That might be a few centimeters out, but it's you get the gist. Something called oligomenorrhea or amenorrhea, which is the absence or discontinuation of a cycle. And you can have something called hirsutism. I think I'm saying that right. Which is like, male pattern facial hair, excess hair in places that you don't really want it. So yeah, that's PCOS in a nutshell.
In a shell of note. That was summed very nicely. So let's sort of talk about the diagnosis, so to speak, and criteria. So what is it that you mentioned that there's a few sort of things that can go on there in terms of what it is, but if you went to your GP, I mean, we know GPs are a bit naff in this situation anyway, like you've just said, but if you were to go and seek advice or you were suspecting you may have it, what would be the sort of signs, symptoms, and sort of diagnostic criteria in order to be quote unquote diagnosed with PCOS?
Yeah, good question. So when getting diagnosed with PCOS, like it's not my job, it's not any coach's job to diagnose, but if they go and see their GP, typically it will be because either they haven't got their cycle in a while or it's like dead infrequent. Maybe they find it hard losing weight, maybe they've gained a lot of weight over the years or the months. It can even be sometimes things like depressive symptoms and stuff. So that's a big factor toward PCOS is no cycles, infertility, weight gain, and all these can lead to like a lower quality of life. So if you do experience any of these, then go and see your GP. And upon diagnosis, you'll just get told to go and lose weight, which is a huge disservice to the PCOS and females. So if you do get told to lose weight, then this podcast is going to tell you how and is going to tell you just what's going on under the hood. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really sort of a big thing with things related to female hormones and physiology that I've experienced with my stuff as well, is that you do get sort of very sort of generic and just poor advice. Like with me, it was just stop exercising as much, and it's, you know, quite a general statement to make. It's like, well, what does that mean? What does, you know, what does not exercising as much look like? For some people, if you've gone from exercising 4 hours a day, well, that will be quite obvious, but even then it is still quite vague, and I'm guessing that's the same. If it was just a case of, well, just go lose some weight, well, they just go do it, but people do struggle. So if someone's listening to this, or hypothetically someone did just get that really poor bit of advice, what would sort of, I know myself what I would say to someone to help lose weight, but someone in this situation where they are struggling more, what would you sort of say to them? What would be sort of your approach in that? And I know everyone's different, but as sort of a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, sweet. So I'm gonna, again, to answer this, I'm gonna relay back to some of my clients in the past and what I've advised them to do upon diagnosis. And again, I've not diagnosed, my GP has, but in a step-by-step, like sort of walkthrough, if you will. So say if right now or in the future you get diagnosed PCOS, it's like, okay, what now? You know, sometimes it can be more difficult losing weight. There's different types of PCOS. So there's insulin resistance, which I'll touch on that in a bit, what that exactly that is and why that's a big factor. So naturally, sometimes some females with PCOS have to diet naturally on lower calories, and in our industry, it doesn't help where, yeah, there's people going around saying, oh, you can't diet on like 1,200 calories, blah, blah, blah. But there's people with PCOS who in fact need to, but they'll see that and they'll go, oh, well, I can't diet on that much calories. That's not what I need to do. And then they'll eat more calories, and then there comes the weight gain and stuff. But sometimes with PCOS, the horrible sort of landscape, if you will, the horrible landscape is you will have to diet on lower calories if you was to be in a calorie deficit. So, you know, you have I'm going to be so stereotypical now, like the average female, if you will, might need to diet on random number, say 1,800 calories, random number. A female with PCOS might have to diet on, let's say, 1,500, even 1,400 calories. So the reason why for that is you can experience anywhere between 14 and 40% reduction in your BMR. So that's your base metabolic rate, you know, how much you burn just from doing nothing all day. 14 to 40%. That's massive. That is huge. And when we think about that, we've got to think, okay, I might have to diet on low calories, but there's ways around it. You don't have to be dieting on next to no calories for weeks and weeks and weeks. You can do 2 weeks on a deficit, 2 weeks on a maintenance. And you can sort of psychologically not be on a diet for for long term. Because you know yourself, when you're on a diet for long term, even without PCOS, it's hell.
It's not nice. It's not
It's
nice.
hell. Yeah, you get cranky, you can't focus, you can't do your best work, your best content. And I've been in the gyms before with my clients when I've been dieting, and after about 6 or 7 clients in a day, I'm like, I'm not even present. Do you know? But yeah, it's a landscape that some females can experience with PCOS. And when we think about this now, we think, okay, this is something worth talking about. You know?
Absolutely. No, that's interesting. So what is it about PCOS then that makes it harder? As you sort of touched on insulin resistance there, what is it, and BMR? So why does it impact these things, which would then cause obviously them to have to diet on lower calories? So what is it about the actual PCOS that causes that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, sweet. So with insulin resistant PCOS, so firstly, again, people need to know what insulin and insulin resistance is. So insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas deep down inside, that basically when you eat carbohydrates and when your blood sugar comes up, insulin gets secreted and it brings it back down again. It's like a sort of a manager, if you will, to say it bluntly as hell. And with females with insulin resistance, or anyone with insulin resistance, because there's diabetics with like insulin resistance, there's many people in the world, not just PCOS females with insulin resistance. So with this, the insulin secretion, if you will, so their pancreas is sort of impaired function. And this is typically how type 2 diabetics get diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so with that in mind, yet the BMR, the basal metabolic rate, all through different endocrinological processes. That was very hard to say.
You got it.
Secreted by the brain and stuff. So it's all chemical processes that's happening in the body that's getting impaired. So it's not that it's not working at all. It's just impaired.
Mm-hmm.
So with insulin resistance, yeah, I hate using squared. Your metabolism is slower.
Yeah.
Yes, in a sense, like very nebulous term, but yeah, it will be impaired. It will be a bit slower if you have insulin resistance, but it's not the end of the universe. It can be managed.
Yeah.
You know, so don't be thinking, oh, all hope is lost. I'm not going to lose any weight. This is it. You know, I can't lose weight. You can. You absolutely can. Even with, you know, there's different things you can do, which we can discuss later in the episode, that you can do. Do you like when little things are added up to compound to big things?
Mm-hmm.
This is what we can do with PCOS.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that in mind, yeah, the BMR can be impaired. So your traditional your calorie calculators and stuff, these won't give you an accurate reading for PCOS.
No, I don't like calorie calculators anyway. They're a good. It's general, but who's general? That's what I always think. It's generic, but no one's generic. Like, you don't get a generic person anymore, you know.
No, you don't. And trust me, like for my exams, I had to work out. If you've heard of METs before, like if you've not, then you've probably seen it on a cross trainer or treadmill where it says METs. The only way to work out how much calories someone burns each day, I'm not even joking, is to calculate every 15 to 30 minutes what they are doing in their day-to-day life, walking, sitting, running, cycling, training, sleeping. So to do that, I had to do that for my exams. And trust me, when you put a number in the TDE calculators, it's never exact. Trust me.
No, never is. I think I've done it on myself before, and then compared it to what I'm actually on, and I've just been like, it's quite a discrepancy here. And then you go and use another one, and even then they're all different. Like, they'll all come out with something different. So This is why sometimes when you start up with a coach or you start dieting yourself and you use these sort of calculators, and they'll calculate something for you based upon these sort of calculations and looking at your lifestyle. Don't be surprised when things have to change sometimes, because we can't know you from even an in-depth consultation. Even then we still don't 100% have a clear picture. And if you're basing, when it's like 1 to 10, how active are you, you're never going to be bang on. And also what their 7 and your 7 are a totally different thing, so it can be totally
exactly
rubbish, basically, is what I'm trying to say there, without going off a rant about calorie calculators. That could be a whole other podcast in itself, could that? But let's sort of look at what to do if someone's listening to this for sake of argument, because I reckon there'll probably be at least one person, or I'm always going to put a little clip of this on Instagram as well, so someone might be watching that and think, I've some of those symptoms are maybe linked to me, especially the one I think about struggling to lose weight, which I guess is another debate in itself, because people like to, without sounding like a total bitch here, but I keep it real, people like, when they struggle to lose weight, like to see these things. They'll type it into Google, as you do with a symptom. Struggling to lose weight, you might have this, you might have underactive thyroid, must be that, when it could just be the fact that you're not in a deficit. But let's just say, for our sake of argument, a couple of those symptoms are ringing bells, like, yep, I can relate to that, I can relate to that, I can relate to that. What would you say to someone in that situation? Would you say go see a GP to get the diagnosis? What would you say to someone in that situation?
Yeah, like hands down, definitely go and see a GP. Like there's nobody else who should be diagnosing you with PCOS other than your GP, doctor, whichever. Like if you're listening to this or watching this and you have any of them, it can be 2 out of the 3. I think it's 3 or 2 symptoms of the above. And there's something you can type into Google, which is called the Rotterdam criteria. It's put down into basic forms. And if you have any of those symptoms, just go and see a GP. So you know. It's people think if they have these symptoms, then they've definitely got it. Go and see them regardless. Even if you're correct, go and see them.
What will they do then to actually, will they just go through like a sort of questionnaire style? Will they do any further testing? What typically is the way for them to actually diagnose someone?
Yeah, so they'll scan so they'll scan your ovaries, and they'll look for like things like large cysts on your ovaries, and they can even test like your blood sugar. They can test your, I forgot what it's called now. Free testosterone or androgen levels. That's the one. You can test what's called your androgen levels. So with females PCOS, you get elevated androgens. So you can have a numerous amount of tests. But from the get-go, if you get scanned, if you've got cysts on your ovaries, and if they, they flag up with other symptoms, they'll diagnose you there and then.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's sort of talk about now. Let's move on. So let's move down the path. So someone's had these symptoms, they've suspected it, they've got the diagnosis, probably been told, yep, now you need to just go lose some weight, see you later. Let's actually talk about living with it now. So besides from the struggling to lose weight, is there any sort of implications in terms of side effect symptoms that a person might experience when living with PCOS?
Yeah, so like lifestyle factors. So with lifestyle in mind, like day-to-day living, again, besides from the irregular or infrequent cycles and stuff, like that in itself can be a stress. I mean, I've not had a cycle, certainly not yet. But from what I've again been told, like I sound like a strange person now. Like I spend a lot of time around females. Like 95% of my client base are females. So for me not to be asking these questions, like how is your cycle been? Is it, when I first start with a client, like, do you have regular cycles? Like what? It's like, do you have regular cycles? Like, does it last for these amount of days? Like, yeah, I think so. They stumble. And so living with it, in a sense, You can experience like obviously the irregularity of that. You can just find it frustrating as well. Like as a female, as a woman, you don't want excess facial hair. You don't want excess hair in your body. You know, it's something we've always been taught. It's not what a woman should look like. Like what should a woman look like? Do you know? It's something we've been taught that's wrong. So if I remember from school, like women used to get bullied for having facial hair or excess facial hair or hair in their arms and stuff. And I'm like, that to live with mustn't be nice. So I guess in a nutshell, it can be quite quite a struggle to live with. That as well as like infertility and stuff. So the actual ovarian function is impaired or none at all. So you will not ovulate. So if you can't ovulate, you can't be fertile. You can bring it back, but again, it's a bit of work to do. So if you're trying for a baby, that itself can be a huge stress. So living with it, yeah, it's not nice. Especially to those who want kids and want to lose weight, or both. But in terms of other things, again, that you can do day to day life. Again, you can go into exercise, or we can go into certain styles of training, like if any, which spoiler alert, there's not. But yeah, that's lifestyle with PCOS in a nutshell.
Interesting. So let's sort of talk about some of the implications, because I've had a few of my clients, I've got a client that I know has it 100%, a few have suspected it, and I've had questions as well from other people, and typically my followers on Instagram are into fitness and health in some way, shape or form, whether they're, just in the gym, other coaches, people seem to be in the industry. So people will inevitably have sort of concerns and worries or interest in the implications it can have on specific, like you mentioned, their styles of training and fat loss. So let's sort of break those down individually. So let's start with sort of fat loss. Obviously, you've touched upon the lower calories, and I've seen myself, when you Google it, there's certain myths about what you should and shouldn't eat with PCOS, and how many things you should eat, and the fact that you can't diet, and all of these myths, which I'm sure you've become aware of and seen and heard of as well. So let's just break it down into what's actually fact. So in terms of fat loss, hypothetically speaking, I'm a client of yours, I've come to you, I want to lose weight, I've got PCOS. I know you can't give me numbers or anything because I'd be generic, but what would you go about it? What things would you do? What things would you not do? What things are myths, misconceptions when it comes to fat loss with PCOS?
Cool. So yeah, you're a client of mine, you come to me. So what I typically do first is find out first and foremost, how much you need for you. And if you are insulin resistant, you'll know by a GP. With that in mind, I'll work out your BMR and I'll take a percentage off, because to factor in the 14 to 40%, will it be 100% correct? No. Will it be nearly 100% correct? Yes. Again, 14 to 40%, we don't know how much exactly. So it's a case of, calculating the most calories you can diet on and sort of work from there. So it's, again, feedback from client to coach. Secondly is the high protein diet. Now, we've been told, everyone's been fucking told for high protein diets. It's like the buzzword now for the industry. It's like high protein diets. Cool. But for PCOS, even more so. Because of I'm going probably a very sciencey now, but in terms with your metabolism, the reason why we should consume high protein diets is because what's called thermic effect of feeding. You probably know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So with protein, it's the highest thermic effect. It burns the most calories out of carbs, proteins, and fats just through eating it, just through digesting it. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's 15 to 20%, if that, through digestion. That's big. If you're having a high protein diet, it will make not a significant amount of difference, but it'll make that slight difference to make up, if anything, for the loss we have. Number 2 is not keto, absolutely not keto. However, low carbohydrate has been favored by studies with PCOS. So low carbohydrate, that doesn't mean 10, 20 grams of carbs. That's fucking keto. Low carbohydrates can look like anything. Low carb for me can be high carb for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like low carb for me is between, I'd say between 180 and 220 grams. That's low carb.
Yeah, for a lot of females, that's like just a standard amount of carbs, isn't it? So
yeah, so low, it's very subjective. So low carb can look like anything. So all I'd do is I'd say have a lower carb intake, have a higher fat intake, specifically monounsaturated fats, and have a low GI. Opt more for low GI foods.
Yeah.
Again, helps a lot with with cycle regularity, helps with, again, insulin resistance. All these things, like I said earlier in the podcast, all these things we can do that can compound to sort of compensate, if you will, like probably not the right word to use, but to make up for the loss we have for our insulin resistance and for better quality of life as well.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, exercise. $1 million question. What's the best exercise to do? Is there a specific one that's going to benefit my PCOS? And I put this on a post the other day. The answer is not sexy. And because it's not sexy, when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that's the one. It's one you enjoy the most. Like, it's the one you can stick to the most. Yeah, resistance training has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, which we want to do. We want to improve, because we are insulin resistant, we want to improve insulin sensitivity. So resistance training has been shown to improve that. So, barbells, resistance training, opt more for that.
Yeah.
Focus more on hitting a PB in the gym on a squat or a hip thrust, rather than thinking, I can't lose weight and be so fixated on the scales. Let's put more of our attention to our personal bests, our 5K runs, our hip thrusts, Yeah. It's much more of a better achievement. It's a better motivation.
It's 100%. I think that's transferable to just fat loss in general as well. Like, that's so relatable to clients. Like, I think people do become far too hung up, far too fixated on things like scale weight and I can't see anything changing, this, that, and the other. And it can become very frustrating. And like with the not being sexy, when things do get frustrating, it can very much impact your level of adherence. Because when you're getting frustrated by stuff like the scale, you get to a point where you think, well, what's the point? Because nothing's moving, but I'm working my backside off. Whereas 9 times out of 10, if you put the graft in the gym, you'll start to see the rewards. You're going to have the bad sessions and the days where things don't quite go to plan. We all do. But like 90% of the time, you'll see progression. You'll feel a PB. And those feelings are so energizing, so much more rewarding, so much more powerful than scale weight, than seeing, this get a little bit leaner, because of the actual changes it has physiologically, inside as well. Hormones release your dopamine, all these reward pathways going off as well. So like you said, I think that's not just from PCOS, but I think anyone who's on a fat loss journey, these are things to focus on. And I still don't understand why resistance training is still sort of buried under the carpet when it comes to fat loss. Fat loss, the first thing you think of is someone on a treadmill, someone doing a disgusting boot camp, someone with, battle ropes and all of this thing, like Biggest Loser, that's what you think of, isn't it? But it's like when I get clients on fat loss, you probably had it yourself. You're getting a fat loss client and you're writing up a program and you've got resistance training. Why am I doing weights? I just want to lose some fat. Why am I doing weights? But as we've covered there, not only is it going to have benefits from your physique stance, but actually internally as well, in terms of what it's going to do for you on the inside to actually help with fat loss as well. So that's a really good point there. But let's move on to the other side then. So say someone's being diagnosed with it, and let's say you've gone through a fat loss phase, they've got to a point where they don't really need to lose any more weight at all. They've really got into the gym, they're loving it, they're having a great time lifting all the weights, and they're like, I really enjoyed this. I'm kind of fine with my physique right now. I'm bored of being in a deficit, really. I kind of want to, build some muscle here. I want to, quote unquote, tone up, as they might use the word. We love that. We love that phrase. We really do. How would you go about this then? For people, because based upon what we've said, the people listening might be thinking, well, can I ever be off low calories then? Am I always going to be on low calories because of the PCOS? Can I build muscle then? Is there any implications for muscle building? Is there any implications on the calories? What would it look like? Again, hypothetical, I'm a client. We've dieted, you've done a great job with me, but now I want to get jacked, Chris. What would we do?
Jacked. I love it.
Stacked.
So, yes.
In a way that doesn't involve any, of the dodgy stuff as well. All natural here. Natties for life.
No anabolics here. No anabolics here.
No.
Yeah, brilliant question. Like, this can apply for females with PCOS and males and females everywhere. So if you want to go through, if you've lost the weight, if you've got your goal and you've absolutely smashed it, you're feeling absolutely sexy, calorie maintenance or calorie surplus. If you want to maintain your weight, calorie maintenance. Again, something that probably not many people know about, because all they've heard for the last fucking few years is deficit. So calorie maintenance, we can expect to see better gym performances, more energy, more sex drive. That benefits everything. So calorie maintenance, again, when you work out your deficit, we just don't take we don't take any numbers off in terms with a deficit. So we keep everything there. If you've done the graft and you've lost the weight and you've got your goal, 2 or 3 options, I'd say. I typically like to put my clients on what's called a diet break. So a diet break is untracked, so to speak. In my world, it's a week untracked, but not eating like a dickhead. But in a sense of maintenance, this is more food. This is, you get more calories, so naturally you're gonna respond a lot better, and your weight will stay the same, or it should stay the same. If it's not staying the same, then you're either in a deficit or a surplus. So yeah, in terms of gym performance, we can expect to see PBs, faster runs, just even better executed moves and a better pump. Like, you probably know yourself, when you've had more calories, the pump is insane.
Yeah. So
having that in itself is so motivating. Like when you lift like a personal best, or you're feeling absolutely jacked and you're in the session, you're like, yes, I'm on it. I'm eating food. I'm lifting weights. This feels fucking awesome. That's what we should be striving for. Not dieting forever.
That's good. So in terms of the calories as well, you've been on lowish calories because you've gone with this, you want to build your calories up. Will they still have to be on, will surplus calories then just reflect that, in terms of their surplus calories will be typically lower than someone else's surplus calories? Is that going to be the case then? Because of the...
Yeah, like it does extrapolate to maintenance and surplus as well. Like, in terms with PCOS, like, someone's maintenance calories will look different because of their BMR reduction if they have insulin resistance. So yeah, maintenance calories will still be a little bit lower. So
yeah,
even this for them will feel like, because they've got their goal, they've probably dieted for a few weeks, months maybe. If they've got that, then any calories above that are going to feel really good psychologically. So yeah, the maintenance and the surplus calories for someone with insulin resistance, PCOS, will be lower still, but in a sense, it's higher than what they've had before.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So yeah,
total sense. Total sense.
And it's important to note as well that if you got your goal, like, please, anyone listening to this, if you've got a coach and if they keep pushing you to lose weight and to lose weight and to lose weight, and even when you got your goal and they're still pushing you to drop calories and to drop calories, it's just so they can get you as lean as fuck, potentially lose your cycle again, and to just screw everything up. Listen to this. Put yourself in a damn meetings and question them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
100%.
I like that. That's a good point. And again, I think not even PCOS, generally as well, question it. If you feel like you are being pushed to a point that is a bit much, you're starting, because ultimately, unless you are dieting for something quite extreme, like you making weight for a competition, like powerlifting, if you're doing a bodybuilding show or you wanting to do a photo shoot and you wanting to get extremely lean, yeah, that's when things get pushed. But if it's general sort of lifestyle, wanting to lose body fat for health reasons, there's a limit. Like, it's going to be, how I like to see it is, fat loss is simple, but it's not easy. It's not going to be ridiculously hard, and it shouldn't be the most disgusting, horrible thing you ever do. But you are going to have a few struggles here and there. But there is a fine line between it being a challenge, because ultimately it's not what your body wants to do, and like you said, being horrible. So
yeah,
that's transferable to anyone.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds soft, right? So fat loss in itself, like you said there, it's simple. On paper, it's simple, but it's not easy because of the lifestyle factors. And I like to think of fat loss like toilet paper. So when you rip one sheet off, and just cool. So toilet paper, when you got nothing left, when you got no toilet paper left, all right. When you lost over a month, some's missing, and eventually there's not. So when there's not, coach to take the extreme of taking that empty tube of toilet paper and start ripping that as well. And when that happens, it's like, cycle regularity goes, your sex drive goes, you have nothing left.
Yeah. No.
So this is probably more prevalent in the bodybuilding world and stuff. I've coaches who have done this before, to male and females, and just took the extreme just so they can say, look what I've done to my client. I've got them jacked as hell. I've screwed the life up, but they look good.
It's not cool. It's not cool at all. So just to sort of finish up a bit, we've touched on a few there about the sort of the diet ones. Are there any other sort of myths or misconceptions which are quite common or get circulated around that you've come across, or you've had clients or people on Instagram message you about, that you want to clear up on this podcast and just get out there to people, like this is BS or this is a bit of a curveball of what's actually true? Because I haven't seen any myself, or if I have, I've not seen that it's a myth because I don't know any better, if that makes sense.
Yes. So it's on PCOS.
Yes.
One that is prevalent, asked about the most is, can you have dairy or gluten?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Simple answer is yes. The complicated answer, or the smarty pants answer, if you will, is absolutely yes. There's a study done where two control groups, one it's isocaloric, so it's same calories. One was no gluten or no dairy, other was gluten dairy. And the result, no difference in weight loss whatsoever. No difference. Serum levels, there's no difference in what's called free testosterone. So no difference at all. So in terms with, can you have dairy? Can you have cheese? Milk, yogurt? Yes, you can. Bread, bagels? Yes. Another myth that About PCOS, I have one here on my notes. If I look that quick, is carbs. Can you have carbs? Again, yes, you can have carbohydrates. Maybe opt, like I said in the podcast, opt probably for lower GI carb most of the time, but you can still have carbs. It's just favored to reduce them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But does it really matter? Not as much as people think. And again, just to word vomit at the end of the podcast, supplementation, just a quick note.
Mm-hmm.
Supplementation can really help. Myo-inositol, which got brought to light by Mark McDonald. This can really help ovarian function. And if you have PCOS, listen to this, you should absolutely go and get some myo-inositol. There's some of my protein you can opt for. It's cheap as hell. That helps with ovarian function and regularity as well in your cycles. Vitamin D, because this has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, and omega-3 fish oils as well. So yeah, 3 supplements for you. I don't get no kickback, no codes. Just
this is when you throw in the I've just got a sale on all my omega-3s, so if you want to
please use Wards 10 for 10% off, and I get some money if you do that. Yeah.
In fairness, as well, omega-3 and vitamin D are good ones for anyone. In absolute fairness, especially omega-3. Well, both, to be fair, because I think the majority of people in this country as well, with our lifestyle in terms of diet choices and the fact that our weather is pretty poor, we tend to be deficient in both naturally anyway. So it will just be that first one, which I'm not even going to attempt to say, which I think is probably I don't know. How would you say it again?
Myo-inositol, yeah.
Does it ever come under another name, or is it always just going to be that?
It's actually spelt inositol, but
I know what it is now. You said that, because I was thinking back to when I worked at Holland and Barrett. Like, did we sell that? Surely we must have done. But now you said that, I'm like, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. There's, again, be careful, because obviously where there's vulnerability, there's profit these days.
Oh, yeah.
Just be careful not to buy any expensive shit because it claims this or that. Just go with the bog standard fucking basic. Yeah, again, research on Mark McDonald's research was on the just literally basic inositol powder. So 3 to 6 grams per day for up to 6 months. That's the dosage for inositol.
I remember that now. I remember it because I remember it as well because I couldn't say. I was like, how do I say this? One. It wasn't a massive seller, to be fair, but I think that's because there's lack of awareness. Like, I worked there and didn't know that it was linked to that. So I'm sure that we had many customers come in with hormonal issues. It was usually more sort of menopausal that we'd have the demographic for, because generally Holland and Barrett tends to be your older people anyway. But it's interesting. Right, let's wrap this up then. There's a couple of bits that we need to do before I can let you go. So the first one is, if people are interested in following you, because you do post some pretty awesome content, not just related to PCOS, but in terms of sort of diet, nutrition, training. It's pretty funny as well at times. You do a lot of Harry Potter humor and things like that. So it's good banter. So where can people follow you if they do feel like following you, which they should really. In fact, now I'm telling you, if you've listened to this all the way through and you don't follow Chris after this, I will find you. And I'm not going to disclose that on the podcast, because then I'm basically...
I will find you, and then I'll be highly offended.
Yeah, I'll be really upset, and bad things might happen as a result. But there you go. I'm not incriminating myself there.
Real. So if you listen, if you want to know more from me, if you want to look at my posts, I do anything from fat loss, muscle building, PCOS, female sexual health, et al. Head on Instagram now and type in Ward Fitness PT. Tell me a follow. Give me a message, ask me a question. Or you can find me on chriswardpt.com. I have a bunch of free stuff on there. Go for it. Or you can listen to any of my podcasts. It's the Chris Ward Podcast.
He's got some good podcasts as well.
I try. Lockdown's helped. So head over to there, and again, if you don't mind listening to my horrible Scouse accent, then go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to sit through the horrible Scouse accent just to listen to the content on some of my walks, and it's worth putting up with, guys. It really is. There's some really awesome ones.
This is tidied up compared to some people in my area. Trust me.
You had to rein it in. And then the signature question that you have to answer before you leave is a very important one, and that is, what is your favourite cereal?
Ooh, this is a good question. I
It
like
is a good
cereal.
question. Cereal's
Right,
good.
do you know what? My favorite cereal is Curiously Cinnamon.
Good answer. I'll give you. I've had some really poor answers to it recently, and it
Even
just
worse
ended on
answer.
like the Rice Krispies, Cocoa Pops, stuff like that. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
When you've got the
Come
choice
on.
of any, and you're going for Cocoa Pops, like, get a grip.
My client said cornflakes one time.
Oh no, that's
I'm like,
that's one of the worst.
come on, at least try.
It's like you've
No.
not even tried. That's like, oh no, that's like a typical what you do is, like, when you're having like a healthy diet and you were writing like in school your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'd go for cornflakes as the healthy cereal, but no one would choose it. No one walks into Morrison's, walks down the cereal aisle and goes, oh, I've just got this banging craving for some cornflakes.
Do you know, if I have cornflakes, I will have copious amounts of sweetener on top of it, and probably to
Yeah.
the point where it's no longer cornflakes.
Basically Frosties. Or it's not too bad if you had it with like protein shake as the milk, because then it's at least flavoured. But just cornflakes or if you're making them into cornflake crispy buns at Easter, then it's different.
Yeah, cornflake cakes are the bomb.
Of course.
I agree.
But just if you're listening to this and you just eat cornflakes out of choice as a favourite cereal, I am gonna say this now, you probably do need to reevaluate your life. That offends you? Yeah, if that does offend you, then good. Sort yourself out, basically. But I think that wraps it up nicely, just offending a bunch of people. But no, my listeners are better than that. My listeners are, they're good. They're on the Curiously Cinnamon. They're on the Crave. I have faith in my listeners. But thank you for your time, Chris. It has been very insightful. I've learned some bits. I'm sure other people have as well. And I guess some take-homes are, we've learned more about PCOS. And for people who are struggling, there's some knowledge bombs there. And for people who may think it's something they have an issue with or have a problem with, you now know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, share it, guys. Just get the word out there and help make more noise about it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Chris. Let's wrap that up there, and we'll catch you on the next one, everyone. Otherwise I will forget, because I don't write stuff down. I'm going to order that book as well after this, because I like reading, and
this will
sounds really good.
Change your life.
I'm holding you to that.
To be more than one aha moment in here. Like, even that hypothalamic amenorrhea, I didn't know that until I read this.
Interesting.
It's what Kaylee had as well. Like, she either had that, or post-pill amenorrhea, or post injection, whatever. But even that, like, when I said, "Oh, could be this," she was like, "Wow." I was like, "Yeah, could be this." Or yeah, it is factored by stress through training. It's a big stress, so that's probably why she's reducing your training. Yeah, no, that's what we're thinking anyway. But no, thank you for that. I will be posting this not next week, the week after, because I've got one scheduled for. It's every Wednesday. I've got 2 scheduled, but it is like a little series, because I managed to do them all related to this, so it's pretty interesting. But I'll tag it when it's up and everything. So thank you for your time. It's very much appreciated. Welcome, mate. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of your day. I'll try. You too. See you in a bit. See you, mate.